Imagine waking up on your 65th birthday, looking in the mirror, and seeing that you traded your best years for a weekly paycheck. You did everything right, went to work in the dark, came home in the dark, and gave away your life hour by hour to a company that will replace you tomorrow. This is not just a normal job path. It is a silent, accepted theft of human time. Millions of people walk into this trap every single day without making a sound. They trade their energy, their youth, and their freedom just to keep the lights on and buy things they barely have time to use. The sad truth is that this slow drain of a life is completely normal. We are taught to accept this massive loss as the only way to live. But deep inside this system, a quiet rebellion is growing. A small group of people looked at this endless cycle of working and spending and decided to break the rules. They began plotting a desperate escape plan to take back their stolen time. This secret exit strategy is called the FIRE movement, which stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. It acts like a secret mission hidden right out in the open. These people are not winning the lottery or getting giant piles of gold from rich parents. They are normal workers who refuse to let the system drain their lives away. They have built a radical new way to live, turning every dollar they earn into a tool for their own rescue. The first sign of this rebellion is a strange vanishing act. Picture a 30-something office worker sitting in the next desk doing a totally average job for an average wage. Then one random Tuesday, they pack up their things and walk out the door, never to return to the office world again. They do not go to another job. They simply disappear from the endless grind. How does someone so young, without a massive fortune, just vanish from the working world? They leave behind confused bosses and shocked friends who cannot understand the math. It looks like magic or maybe a terrible mistake. But this disappearance is completely planned out. That empty desk is the ultimate proof that the escape plan actually works. To understand how they got out, you have to look closely at your own wallet and the daily grind that traps us all. Society trains us from a very young age to spend every single dollar we make. When we get a raise, we buy a better car. When we get a bonus, we buy a bigger house. This keeps us locked in a never-ending loop of buying and working. We are kept tired, stressed, and stuck relying on the next paycheck just to hold on to the things we bought. The trap is perfect because it feels like success. We think we are building a good life, but we are really just building a more expensive cage. The more we spend, the longer we are forced to work. The map to unlock this cage was not found in a fancy bank or a famous school. It started years ago in the dark, quiet corners of the internet. A few early escapees began sharing their secrets on hidden message boards and plain, hard-to-find blogs. They spoke in a new language of intense saving and strange math. These online spaces became secret meeting grounds for people desperate to buy back their lives. They shared extreme plans for cutting spending to the bone. They proved to each other that you do not have to wait until you are old and tired to be free. The movement grew in the shadows, one saved dollar at a time. Those hidden internet posts became the survival guide for a new group of rebels. The most shocking truth these rebels found on those forums was the actual math of survival. Society has lied to us about how much money we need to be safe. We are told we need many millions of dollars to even think about stopping work. But the true math is surprisingly small. You do not need a mountain of gold to escape the daily grind. When you strip away the fancy cars, the huge houses, and the constant shopping, the cost of keeping a human being alive and happy drops fast. This sudden, jarring truth changes everything. The prison door is not locked. We just thought it was. To walk out that door, you need an exact math formula known to the group as the FIRE number. This is not just a simple home budget or a vague goal. It is the exact ransom you must pay to buy back the rest of your life. It is the hard price tag on your total freedom. You find this ransom by tracking every single penny you need to live for a year, and then multiplying that amount by 25. If you can live on $40,000 a year, your ransom is $1 million. It sounds like a lot, but it is a hard, fixed target. Once you hit that exact mark, the system can never force you to work again. Having that single solid number turns a vague dream of freedom into a real, physical mission. Knowing your exact FIRE number brings a heavy, chilling weight. You stare at that specific dollar amount on a glowing screen, feeling a deep mix of intense dread and wild hope. It is a massive mountain to climb, but it is the only thing standing between you and total control of your own time. Every dollar you spend today pushes that freedom further away, while every dollar you save buys you another hour of your life back. Staring at that final calculated number fundamentally changes a person. It sits there on the screen, usually a figure between $1 million and $2.5 million, presenting a heavy, cold truth staring back at you. This is the exact target required to generate a sustainable, lifelong income without ever clocking into a traditional job again. This staggering sum is the exact, non-negotiable price of your long-term freedom. It brings a sudden rush of hope as the mathematical possibility becomes clear, but also a deep, chilling dread, because now you know exactly how high the mountain is, and there is no more hiding from the decades of relentless climbing required to reach the summit. The entire early retirement escape plan hangs by a very thin thread known in financial circles as the 4% rule. Originating from a 1994 paper by financial advisor William Bengen and later cemented by the famous Trinity study, this is the fragile historical math that keeps the whole dream from falling apart during economic downturns. The rule dictates that you can safely withdraw exactly 4% of your total invested capital during your first year of retirement, adjusting for inflation annually thereafter. For a $1 million portfolio, that equals precisely $40,000 a year to pay for your entire life. If you take even a little more, the well runs dry, and you are forced right back into the corporate trap you fought so hard to escape. This tiny 4% limit means every single dollar spent becomes a matter of long-term survival. If a sudden medical bill or a major home repair forces a larger withdrawal, especially during the crucial first 5 years of retirement, it triggers what economists call sequence of returns risk, mathematically guaranteeing that the portfolio will collapse prematurely. But hitting that massive ransom number in the first place demands a brutal psychological toll. This is not a quick trick to get rich, but a dark path of total self-denial that compresses 40 years of traditional career savings into a frantic, high-pressure window of just 10 to 15 years of maximum earning and minimal spending. To break free tomorrow, you must willingly strip your life down to the bare bones today. Every modern comfort is ruthlessly cut. Every potential joy is weighed against the compounding cost of your future freedom, leaving a stark and empty present where housing, transportation, and food budgets are slashed to absolute minimums to maximize capital. To grow this massive pile of money, these escape artists turn to a specific, silent financial weapon pioneered by Vanguard founder John Bogle in the 1970s. They do not trade wild individual stocks, chase fast cryptocurrency trends, or attempt to time the unpredictable swings of the global economy, knowing that active trading destroys wealth for everyday investors. Instead, they use broad market index funds, a slow, quiet force that works deep in the shadows of the market. A Standard & Poor's 500 index fund simply gathers fractional pieces of the 500 largest publicly traded companies in America, slowly building power and compounding over the years without making a sound or requiring daily oversight. This invisible machine works day and night to turn small, painful savings into a massive mountain of cash. By reinvesting every single dividend and capturing the historical average return of 7 to 10% annually, the portfolio grows exponentially, utilizing the mathematical phenomenon of compound interest to do the heavy lifting of wealth creation. Yet handing your entire future over to the stock market is a terrifying leap in the dark. It is a volatile, unpredictable beast that no one can control, capable of erasing a decade of disciplined savings during a catastrophic global event like the 2008 financial crisis, or a sudden pandemic lockdown that sends markets spiraling. There is a stomach-dropping fear that comes with watching your life savings crash by 30% during a bad news day. You must stand completely still and trust the beast, resisting every natural human instinct to sell, even as the red numbers on your screen threaten to wipe out years of your blood and sweat in a single afternoon. To feed this beast and accelerate their timeline, followers of the FIRE movement use the most extreme tactic of all. While the average American struggles to save even 5% of their paycheck, these financial radicals maintain a shockingly high savings rate, locking away 50 to 70% of everything they earn, regardless of their income level. If they bring home a single dollar, more than half of it is immediately buried out of sight in tax-advantaged investment accounts. They live exclusively on the tiny scraps left behind, turning every payday into an exercise in extreme survival that fundamentally breaks the standard cycle of earning and immediate consumption that traps most workers. Giving up more than half your income feels like starving yourself while standing at an endless consumer feast. It requires declining dinner invitations, driving 20-year-old vehicles, and accepting a profound social isolation because participating in normal society almost always requires spending money at a rate that destroys the early retirement timeline they have meticulously calculated. Look at your own bank statement through this dark, hyper-optimized lens. Think about the careless way you tap your credit card for a $6 morning coffee, finance a new car, or let a monthly streaming subscription roll over without a second thought about the long-term opportunity cost of those missing dollars over a 20-year horizon. Against the extreme hoarding and mathematical precision of the FIRE movement, normal spending suddenly feels reckless, almost dangerous. It brings a sudden, unsettling guilt, a creeping fear that every careless dollar spent is another heavy iron chain holding you to a corporate desk for yet another year of your finite life, trading precious time for money. Deep within this hidden financial world, an even more radical subculture has formed, known as lean FIRE. They live in the most extreme, desolate corners of the movement, aiming to retire on less than $40,000 a year by permanently embracing a lifestyle of near poverty just to escape the workforce a few years faster. But living on bare-bone rations to escape the system leaves a heavy, permanent mark on the human mind. Psychologists who study extreme frugality have documented a rising trend of severe financial anxiety among those practicing lean FIRE. By cutting their annual budgets down to $20,000 or less, these individuals willingly subject themselves to chronic psychological stress, transforming their dream of early retirement into a daily obsession with survival. The intense focus on pushing their savings rate past 70% of their income can slowly turn into a dark, isolating sickness. People lock themselves away in cold, empty homes, terrified to spend a single dollar on a warm meal with friends or basic entertainment. They stay awake until 3 in the morning staring at complex spreadsheet screens, obsessively watching the investment numbers grow while their real, physical lives wither away in the shadows. The line between a clever financial escape plan and a brutal self-made prison quickly begins to blur. They trade the predictable stress of a demanding corporate boss for the crushing, constant weight of endless penny pinching and social isolation. In their desperate, calculated race to buy back their future time, they completely forget how to live in the present, often alienating their families and ruining their physical health just to reach an arbitrary portfolio target. On the exact opposite side of the financial scale is a wealthy, ambitious group known as Fat FIRE. These people refuse to suffer in the dark or count pennies for their freedom, rejecting the strict austerity of the extreme savers. Instead, they plot to break out of the traditional labor system by demanding a giant, massive ransom from the modern economy, targeting investment portfolios that reach $5 to $10 million before they ever walk away. They aim for a huge final number, relying on a safe withdrawal rate that guarantees an annual income of $200,000 or more, so they can live a life of total luxury once they walk away. They want the sprawling custom houses, the imported luxury cars, and the endless first-class trips across the world, all without ever clocking into a job again. It is a high-stakes, ruthless game where the ultimate prize is absolute, rich freedom. Yet, building such a giant pile of cash in a compressed time frame requires walking a very dangerous, destructive path. Achieving a net worth of $5 million in just 10 or 15 years demands securing the highest-paying roles in investment banking, specialized medicine, or elite technology firms. These are environments designed to extract every ounce of human energy, forcing individuals into a high-wire act where one mistake can completely derail their entire financial blueprint. To reach that massive number quickly, these workers must take on the hardest, most stressful corporate jobs imaginable. They work 80-hour weeks in cutthroat metropolitan offices, dealing with constant executive yelling, extreme quarterly pressure, and almost zero sleep. The relentless effort it takes to gather that much wealth pushes their minds and bodies to the absolute breaking point, frequently resulting in severe hypertension, chronic insomnia, and a total collapse of their personal lives outside the office. The dark catch is that the very tool they use to buy their freedom becomes a brutal, inescapable cage. They trap themselves in a daily nightmare of corporate stress just to fund their grand, luxurious escape plan. Many completely burn out, their physical and mental health permanently ruined by the chase long before they ever reach the finish line, leaving them with millions in the bank but no capacity to actually enjoy the life they built. Hiding between the extreme savers and the heavy earners is a strange, calculated middle ground known as barista fire. This group gathers just enough money, usually between $500,000 and $1 million, to safely quit the brutal corporate grind, but not enough to stop working completely. They step away from the high-rise executive offices and take quiet part-time jobs instead, relying on the steady income to bridge the gap until they can officially tap into their retirement accounts. They pour coffee at local cafes, stock grocery store shelves, or walk neighborhood dogs, working just enough hours to pay for basic food and secure vital employer-sponsored health insurance. The giant pile of index fund investments they built up in the past is left completely alone to grow in the shadows through the power of compound interest. They trade a high executive salary for a low-stress life, covering only their most basic daily needs while their hidden wealth silently multiplies. This part-time survival tactic creates a very bizarre, psychological double life for the people who choose it. By straddling the line between the working class and the secretly wealthy, they intentionally fracture their own identities. They must navigate a world where their daily tasks require minimal mental effort, while their hidden financial portfolios require the sophisticated risk management of a seasoned Wall Street investor, creating a jarring disconnect between who they appear to be and who they truly are. Picture a former top-level software engineer or bank executive now quietly wiping down tables at a local cafe, hiding in plain sight among the morning commuters. Nobody around them knows they have $1 million secretly growing in the global stock market. They exist in a strange, silent limbo, totally cut off from the powerful corporate world they used to rule, yet completely distinct from the minimum wage coworkers who depend on that weekly paycheck just to survive the month. It is a uniquely lonely, isolating way to live out the prime years of adulthood. They do not fit in with the young teenagers working the cash register, and they no longer belong with their old college friends who are still aggressively climbing the corporate ladder. They become financial ghosts, haunting the edges of the normal working world, unable to complain about money to their new peers, and unable to relate to the career stress of their old colleagues. But beneath all these wildly different paths lies one shared, powerful rule that binds the entire movement together: the strict practice of conscious consumerism. This is a deep, calculated rebellion against the normal, debt-fueled way modern society is taught to buy things. These people actively break free from the psychological grip of every loud television advertisement and every flashy billboard they see, rewiring their brains to reject the endless cycle of earning and spending that keeps the economy churning. They refuse to finance a brand new luxury vehicle just because their suburban neighbors bought one, recognizing the depreciation as a direct theft of their future freedom. They stop spending thousands of dollars on designer clothing or expensive dinners to impress people they do not even genuinely like. Every single purchase, from a $3 coffee to a new smartphone, is put under a harsh, bright light and ruthlessly judged against their ultimate, unyielding goal of buying back their permanent independence. This silent, ongoing rebellion fundamentally changes the way they view every object in the physical world around them. They stop seeing price tags as merely a measure of currency, and instead begin calculating the exact cost of goods in terms of human labor. $1,000 television is no longer just an electronic device. It becomes a physical representation of 40 hours of their irreplaceable life, forcing a brutal calculation about what is actually worth trading their limited time to acquire. Look around the room you are sitting in right now. Look closely at your expensive smartphone, your brand name clothes, or the heavily financed car sitting in your driveway. Now, ask yourself the chilling, uncomfortable question these financial rebels ask every single day. Exactly how many hours, days, or weeks of your short, finite life did you permanently trade away to a corporation just to buy those things? When you finally sit down and do the math, the truth is very dark and deeply unsettling. You might realize you worked for 3 entire months of your life, enduring endless meetings and exhausting commutes, just to pay for a piece of metal that gets you to a job you desperately hate. Suddenly, all that physical stuff stops looking like a well-earned reward and starts looking exactly like the heavy steel chain keeping you locked inside the consumer trap. But the perfect financial escape plan hides a terrifying vulnerability just beneath its surface. When you build an entire human life on strict mathematical formulas and rigid spreadsheet projections, a single broken number or a missed decimal point can bring the whole house down in a matter of months. The exact moment you stop working and surrender your corporate salary, you permanently lose your financial safety net. You step completely unprotected into an unpredictable global economy filled with macroeconomic dangers you can no longer control, where one severe recession can wipe out 10 years of extreme, agonizing sacrifice. The strict withdrawal rules that once promised absolute liberation suddenly mutate into a highly fragile trap. The famous 4% safe withdrawal rate, designed as a mathematical shield against poverty, transforms into an unforgiving master that dictates every single penny you are allowed to spend for the next 50 years. Imagine walking away from your corporate career forever, only to watch the major stock indices suffer a catastrophic crash the very next week. The investment portfolio you bled for, the massive pile of capital you accumulated by skipping meals and ignoring vacations, drops by 30% in just 14 days. Absolute panic sets in as you sit in the dark staring at a rapidly shrinking brokerage dashboard. You have absolutely no bi-weekly paycheck coming in to stop the bleeding, no sympathetic boss to ask for emergency overtime hours, and the invisible walls of your carefully engineered future begin to rapidly close in around you. The darkest and most heavily debated flaw in this entire early retirement dream is the modern private healthcare system. Without a massive corporation to subsidize your monthly insurance premiums, simply keeping your physical body alive and healthy suddenly becomes the most devastatingly expensive line item you will ever have to budget for. A single unexpected chronic illness, an accidental broken bone, or a sudden emergency trip to the hospital can instantly destroy decades of extreme, disciplined saving. The carefully invested money that was mathematically required to last for 40 years vanishes overnight into a towering stack of complex hospital invoices and insurance deductibles. Finding a sustainable way to pay for a doctor becomes a desperate, unending puzzle of bureaucratic loopholes. Early retirees are forced to artificially manipulate their taxable investment income just to qualify for government healthcare subsidies, turning their medical survival into a high-stakes game of continuous financial engineering and immense legal stress. This terrifying reality creates a deep, gnawing fear that keeps thousands of early retirees awake at night staring at the ceiling. Financial planners call this specific phenomenon the sequence of returns risk, but in the brutal reality of the stock market, it really just means experiencing catastrophic bad luck at the absolute worst possible time. If the global stock market drops immediately after you submit your resignation, you are forced to liquidate your index funds when they are worth almost nothing just to buy groceries. That early string of bad luck permanently destroys your compounding interest, practically dooming you to run out of money completely when you are old and physically defenseless. Yet, despite the looming terror of economic collapse, the highly anticipated final day of corporate work eventually arrives. You silently pack up your remaining personal items from your cubicle desk, hand over your plastic security badge to human resources, and confidently walk out those heavy glass doors for the absolute last time. You step out into the concrete parking lot, take a deep breath of fresh air, and actually feel the heavy, invisible chains of the modern working world finally snap off your shoulders. Against all statistical odds, you have done the mathematically impossible and successfully bought back the remaining decades of your natural life. The great financial escape is officially complete, marking the successful end of a grueling, decade-long marathon of extreme frugality. The massive spreadsheets have finally served their ultimate purpose, and the relentless daily grind of the traditional 9 to 5 corporate machine is now nothing more than a distant, fading memory in your rearview mirror. But then comes the harsh reality of that very first Monday morning as a retired person. You wake up at your usual early hour, pour a hot cup of coffee, and are suddenly met with a chilling, deafening silence while the rest of the busy world rushes off to commute to their offices. Your digital calendar is completely empty, stretching out into a terrifyingly blank white void that will last for the next 40 or 50 years. The desperate, all-consuming fight for financial freedom is definitively over, and you are suddenly hit with the paralyzing realization that you have absolutely nothing meaningful to do today. This psychological phenomenon is a profound, deeply unsettling mystery widely known within the community as the retirement void. After spending more than 10 consecutive years entirely obsessed with tracking expenses, hoarding index funds, and plotting a desperate escape from the office, the financial goal itself slowly mutated into the only thing that gave your life any real meaning. When the grueling race abruptly ends, thousands of these young, wealthy retirees suddenly realize they completely forgot to build an actual human life outside of their financial spreadsheets. They have developed no engaging hobbies, cultivated no deep personal passions, and all their former friends are still physically trapped at their corporate desks until 5 o'clock every single evening. The boundless, unlimited freedom they sacrificed their entire youth to achieve suddenly feels exactly like a sterile, completely empty room with heavily locked doors. Without a clear purpose or a demanding daily structure to anchor their existence, the ultimate dream of early retirement quietly transforms into a deeply isolating psychological prison of their own meticulous design. The dream of leaving the office behind hides a quiet, unexpected trap. In our modern world, we are told that our worth is tied directly to our jobs. When the alarm clock stops ringing and the daily commute ends, a strange panic sets in. A neighbor or a stranger at a party asks that simple, everyday question: what do you do? Answering with the word nothing feels impossible. Without a job title to hide behind, early retirees often face a painful loss of identity, staring into a mirror and wondering who they actually are when they no longer earn a paycheck. This sudden identity crisis forced a massive shift in how people plan for the future. The movement changed from simply running away from a bad job to actively building a meaningful life before ever handing in that final notice. Financial planners and therapists now work together to treat this post-career shock. The lasting result is a new cultural rule. You cannot just retire from something, you must have something specific to retire to. The heavy toll of extreme saving also left a deep mark on families and friendships. People who spent a decade saying no to dinners, trips, and weddings found themselves completely isolated by the time they reached their financial finish line. Entire circles of friends drifted apart, broken by years of missing out on shared memories. The harsh reality for many early retirees is waking up completely free, only to realize they pushed away everyone they wanted to share that freedom with. This intense focus on saving every penny triggered a surprising shockwave across the traditional working world. In 2021, during a global shift in how we work, thousands of young professionals began quietly quitting their demanding roles in major cities like New York and San Francisco. A major labor report that year revealed a massive drop in workforce participation among people under 40. The extreme ideas born in hidden online forums had bled into the mainstream, changing the basic assumption that a person must trade their best years for a gold watch at age 65. Yet, despite all the spreadsheets and careful planning, a dark cloud still hangs over the entire philosophy. The math relies on historical market averages, assuming the global economy will always recover and grow just as it did in the past century. The lingering question that no financial expert can truly answer is what happens if the world changes permanently. If a massive, never-before-seen economic crash wipes out those carefully hoarded accounts, a generation of people who left the workforce too early may find it impossible to ever return. The rising fear of economic ruin forced the traditional banking system to adapt to this new breed of investor. Major brokerage firms had to rewrite their software and create entirely new retirement products designed for people who plan to live off their investments for 50 years instead of 20. This shift resulted in a permanent change to wealth management rules and tax penalty structures. Institutions that once ignored young extreme savers now build entire departments dedicated to capturing and protecting their massive early nest eggs. But the true cost of this financial rebellion is carried by the workers who tried to escape and failed. Burned out from extreme saving and broken by unexpected medical bills, thousands of hopeful people were forced back into the very cubicles they swore they would never see again, carrying a heavy burden of shame and lost time. In the end, a single, perfect spreadsheet sits glowing on a dark monitor, tracking every penny saved and every hour bought back. It is a silent witness to a desperate human fight against time, leaving us to wonder if true freedom is ever really found in a bank account.